Welcome to the University of Queensland Ochsner Health's MD program webinar. Today's topic will be evolution of an innovative medical school. My name is Melanie Casey, and I am the admissions and enrollment program manager. Allow me to introduce today's panelists. Next slide, please. Sue, there we go. So we will have Dr. Ron Amedee. He is the Dean of Medical Education and the head of UQ-Ochsner's Clinical School. We'll have Sue Barros. She's the Director of Enrollment Management. And we'll have Madison Mora, Medical Student Year 4 Student Ambassador. We'll also have Pete Carlstein and myself manning the chat. Before we begin, let me provide you some chat room instructions. You may begin to enter questions in the chat room as soon as the webinar begins. Our chat room facilitators, Pete and I, will be able to respond during the webinar. And after the presentation and the speakers finish, we'll have a Q&A. So some questions may be held back until then. Feel free to turn your cameras on. Next slide, please. All right, Dr. Amedee, off to you.
Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate it very much. So, a very unique partnership was created in 2009, bringing the best of Queensland, state in current Australia, and the University of Queensland, with Ochsner Health, the largest healthcare provider in Louisiana and also in the Deep South. And that partnership has yielded our medical school program, which we're extremely proud of, and we'll have the opportunity in the next several slides to detail with you all. And thanks for joining us today. Next slide. A little bit about the history of our academic medical center at Ochsner. Actually, January 2nd this month, Ochsner celebrated its 84th anniversary of existence. And you look at that black and white photo on the right-hand side and say that's some really old guys, look like they're dressed back in the 30s perhaps, but that's 1942, and those were the 5 founders of the Ochsner Clinic. And Dr. Alton Ochsner is actually the gentleman on the second row all the way to the right with a little bit of a mustache. And their vision at the time that they formed the clinic was to provide the highest quality medical care, ensuring that patients receive personalized and complete care. These 5 doctors were all professors at Tulane University in their respective specialties. And they were working for the university for a number of years and became very famous in their different specialties. But what they desired to create was a multi-specialty group practice, which in 1942 was heresy in the medical community throughout the United States. And if you think about it now, 84 years later, how is the majority of medicine practiced in the United States today? Multi-specialty groups. The core values of Ochsner really have not changed. Patients first, integrity of our relationship with our patients and one another, compassion for our patients and one another, inclusivity of all people we encounter and work with, excellence in everything we say and do, and teamwork, teamwork, teamwork is a critical thing. We train all of our nurses, all of our physicians in training, all of our residents and fellows to be members of teams. And when you're a member of a team, you will learn how to captain that team. And on other days, you're going to learn how to row the boat because that's how teamwork is most efficient. Also, I'm very proud of the mission statement for Ochsner. We serve, we heal, we lead, we educate, and we innovate. And I think this partnership is a very unique example of innovating in education. Next slide. A little bit about the system. I just tell you when the first class of resident trainees onboarded with us 2 years after our founding in 1944. And in 1946, that number increased 5-fold. The majority of the residents that first rotated at Ochsner were from Tulane. And Dr. Alton Ochsner, our founder, recognized for discovering the correlation between smoking and lung cancer. And our institution has a history, 8 decades plus, of quality patient care, comprehensive training throughout the medical continuum, as well as being known nationally and internationally for quality and patient safety. I mentioned earlier that we are the largest private employer in the state of Louisiana with over 40,000 employees. We service 46 hospitals and 370 health centers. We have over 90 physicians and we have over for almost 5,000 physicians in 90 plus specialties. And Ochsner in New Orleans, the flagship hospital, has been ranked number one by U.S. News and World Report for the past 12 years. Next slide. History of the University of Queensland, a little bit older than us, but not by much, 6 years as a matter of fact. The University of Queensland was established by an act of the Parliament in Queensland in 1909. And the initial faculties that were taught at this university were arts, sciences, and engineering. The inaugural class, 60 men and 23 women at that time. And the university consisted of basically two campuses at that time. Today, however, the current campuses are fourfold. St. Lucia campus, which is probably the largest, founded in 1939, and that's where you, as a first and second year medical student, will spend the majority of your time in education. Gatton, also Hurston, which is where the majority of the traditional students from Queensland are doing their third and fourth years while you're doing your third and fourth year in New Orleans, and also Dutton Park. Next slide. The medical school program was established in Queensland at the university some years after its founding, 1938, so 6 years before Ochsner doors opened for the first time. This was Queensland's first medical school and Australia's largest medical program. And you can see Queensland in the upper right corner in purple, lavender, and the map of Australia. It's a very large state. It's not the largest state, but it's a very large state in Australia. And the University of Queensland is credited with establishing the Gardasil vaccine to protect against HPV. And that royalty has created one of the 8 research centers, which is referred to as the TRI, or the Translational Research Institute. They have garnered top 50 world or global university rankings for a number of years, with 30 plus teaching and research sites throughout the greater Brisbane and Queensland area. 5 faculties, and when I talk about faculties, I'm talking about art and science and medicine and law and business, etc. And I've already touched on the research institutes, which are really indicative of the powerhouse that the University of Queensland really is. It's a powerhouse of incredible and exceptional research. Next slide. So why the partnership? Well, the rationale in 1909 was that for Ochsner, we want to raise the academic stature of our educational program. And the rationale was for UQ to enter the partnership to strengthen an already strong international multicultural environment and enrich the domestic Australian student experience by allowing traditional students in Australia to come do elective rotations in the States and to progress its research enterprise. I think the other thing that's very unique about our two institutions, we're both on rivers. Um, Brisbane is on the Brisbane River, and that river kind of meanders through Brisbane and gives rise to a nice area where the Hurston campus and also where the St. Lucia campus is located. And Ochsner sits on the banks of the Mississippi River in New Orleans. Next slide. I'm going to turn this over now to Sue Ross, who's going to talk about the criteria for application and also for interviewing in our program. Sue?
Thank you so much, Dr. Amedee. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So it's no surprise, I guess, that working in the Office of Enrollment, that one of my most favorite parts about this program is the application process. So when Dr. Amedee said that Ochsner, the UQ-Ochsner program is very innovative, that's what I really love about this program because they created an ease of applying. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. There's really minimal criteria to apply to this program. We ask for a MCAT score of 504 or higher. So that's the medical college admissions test. Their midpoint is about 500. So this score of 504 places you above the average. And that's a really solid, attainable score that you're going to have to put in some work to attain that score. And that will qualify you to move your application forward. Looking at some of our stats, the 2024 intake class had a class average of 510 for MCAT. And then this year, just about the same. It's 509.85. So I guess about 510 is our average, but the minimum score that we take is 504. And then for GPA, we ask for a B average or higher. So 3.0 to 4.0 for us. So that's really pretty minimal criteria, right? But it tells us two really important things about you. I'm often asked, well, how do you know that much about this applicant if that's their minimal criteria? But we know two really important things about you. We know that you're able to study really well and take a very complex test and come out on the back end with a really good solid score. And you know what? You have to do that in med school too. So you've proven yourself in that way to us. The A or B average, so 3.0 to 4.0, and that's your final grade, comes out, tells us that you have 4 years at least sustained success at that level. And you're going to have to do that again in medical school. You're going to have to hang at a decent level and pass all your tests and have a good average like that to get through medical school. So two really important things we know about you already. What we don't know is who you are, right? We know that it's a level playing field. Everyone comes to us with these same criteria. And then we want to find out more about you. So very holistic process of multiple mini interview. And they're becoming more common, so I know some of you have heard of this. But to explain briefly, each applicant has to attain those two criteria, and then they are able to be considered for an interview. As I said, it's holistic in that the interviewers know nothing about you other than you met our criteria to deserve or be considered an interview. What the multiple mini interview does, it assesses your personal qualities. So it's really a personality test, right? We want to see if you're right for our program. As Dr. Amedee said, we have some values that Ochsner takes very seriously. So we want our physicians and our medical students to be kind and compassionate, have excellent verbal communication skills, and many other of these personality qualities that's desirable for a physician to have. So that's what this is. It's a scenario-based interview conducted on Zoom. There are 8 different scenarios that you will have. So 8 10-minute interviews in a row, testing you on various personality domains. What I like about this, it removes roadblocks. So the simple application, as you know, applying to medical school is not the easiest thing, right? There's a lot of hoops to jump through and things to submit, but this application really strips it down to where you apply just online from our website. You can go to our website and click on Apply Now, and it's a free application. So just that fact alone that you have a free application can save so much money. We know that it's very expensive to apply to med school. And since this application is in-house, there's no secondary. So there's no secondary fee to pay, no initial application fee. It does ask for demographics, and then you upload your passport photo and also your official transcript. You have to upload your unofficial and have the school registrar's office email your official transcript to Queensland. So what is not required? No letters of recommendation. You don't have to write a personal statement, and we don't ask for your resume or any experience, and there's no prerequisites at this time. So that's really pretty amazing because we know these are usually parts of all applications, but not for us. And well, what is the reasoning for that? If we were to have letters of recommendation and statements, that would bias your multiple mini interview. And Ochsner actually wants to learn about you from you. So no one else, just from you. So it does reduce the subjectivity. It's very holistic. If we focus on the applicant, not the competition, like we're never going to say that you have so much experience of shadowing or clinical hours and compare it to someone else because it's simply not part of the application. We're looking at you during that interview process. So what we know about you, we learn from you and your performance there. So I'm really excited about that with our application process is very innovative, makes it very simple. And it's very effective too. Our match rate is off the charts. It's really great. We have consistently in the 90th percentile, and slightly it's always in the high 90th percentiles. And Dr. Amedee mentioned research, and it's true. You can actually obtain a higher degree by research. So that means you can have an MD, MPhil, so add a Master's of Philosophy degree to your MD degree, or you could have an MD, PhD, and add the Doctor of Philosophy degree to your MD while you're in the program. Usually the Master's of Philosophy takes about 1 year. So we say intercalated on this slide. That means that after your second year of medical school is complete, while you're in Australia, you completely stop studying medicine and you work on your Master's of Philosophy. That will take about a year, and then you pick up years 3 and 4 after that's complete in New Orleans. If it's a PhD, we know that takes longer than a year, right? So you would start in Queensland after your second year, and it may take you anywhere in the world wherever your research is located, but you do start in Queensland. And then if you don't finish it right away, then you can also bring it to New Orleans and continue years 3 and 4. But you do have to finish your PhD at the same time or earlier than you complete your MD degree. So you may be interested in research, but not interested in adding a whole nother degree to your MD degree. And we make that available to you that you can have research experience. And for that, you'd go to our research tab on our webpage and go to the Student Research Hub. And you can look at the different availabilities of research that's happening and what maybe you can jump onto as well, something that might be of interest to you. And you get lots of great experience with research, maybe data collection, data entry, how to analyze data, and write your proposal. So it's our prospectus. So it's a great opportunity for you to do that. Many of our students take advantage of that as well. So I did mention match earlier, so let's take a look at that because we know that's one of the most important things about deciding your program is how you're going to match into a residency program. So this is the last 10 years and actually matches about 2 months away from today. So we're going to update this slide in 2 months. But let me break it down for you. You can see it's the last 10 years, and I want to draw your attention to the final column all the way to the right. Non-US IMG, that means International Medical Graduate. That's a med student who receives a degree from a university outside of the United States. That's the University of Queensland. So anyone in our program is going to receive their medical degree, MD degree from University of Queensland, making you an IMG. And if you can see those stats, this year it's 58%. No one really wants to enter the match with a average percentage of matching at 58%, right? And so that's not the best, but let's go all the way back to the left. And you're looking at the number of positions available and total applications. There's 4 more applications than positions. So we can see right there, thousands of med students each year are not going to match. So let's look at the other columns. And I bolded my favorite column, the UQ-Ochsner match, and they're MD seniors. So MD seniors or DO seniors, those are US schools, and that's their averages of matching throughout the years. And if you look at this slide closely, most of these years, UQ-Ochsner outpaces the United States match. I know it's close, but it's still a number, and we can still say that it does outpace. So, and I think that's a tribute to my employer, Ochsner. They do train their students to a higher caliber, and you can see that the long history that these two institutions have really come together to make strong candidates to enter the match. And our students can feel very confident holding a degree from an outside the U.S. university and enter at a strong standing point for the match. And looking at the match that happened last year in March, these are some of the high prestigious residency programs and some of the specialties that our students have entered. So you could see it's It's all different specialties. And then let's look at our outcomes. So our training for our students really has a great effect because they have learned medicine in two continents. They've not only been on the receiving end as patients themselves, but while in Australia and while in New Orleans, our students have been on the caretaker and providing care for our patients. So they get this great cultural perspective of medicine. Australia has socialized medicine, so very different than the US, which we know our programs. So a broad, wide range understanding of global medicine. And really, with our research, there's so many research projects that our students participate in. And you could see 40% of the entire UQ-Ochsner cohort participate in research. Community service is huge. It occurs while in Australia and also in New Orleans. There's many student groups that participate in these activities, which serve our community quite well. And we have a Healthy State initiative in Louisiana, which aims to improve the health of our community and health outcomes as well. Program improvement and support. So we have very good support for our students. You're not only moving around, the globe, but so we need that support, right? It's not that you're just staying in one place. So we have medical societies which provide the assistance and coaching. They foster the sense of community. That's probably your society head probably will write your letter of recommendation for your residency. So very good support throughout. And then patient care. And our graduates contribute to filling the needs for the physicians in the U.S. and Louisiana. As you know, that's something that we're very concerned about is having enough physicians to take care of our populations. So our students also benefit from their actions. There's the global outlook. These are some of the things that's very beneficial to entering our program because the global outlook and the two healthcare systems. Our students do their clinical immersions both in rural Australia and urban New Orleans, so very different populations that our students have experience in treating. They're very adaptable in these varied settings and exposure to the different patient populations, as I mentioned. A training in wilderness, I always hear our students love that. It seems to be really fun for them and quite a different experience to be in the field practicing. And then you have mentorship from our clinical scientists that's involved with research. And this ultimately builds resilience, independence, and global competency throughout for our students. Oh, and that's our last slide. This is our contact information. If you have any email questions, you can use that email address. Both those telephones come to me. That's my desk phone, and you can always text to that number as well. Texting is very convenient, so if you'd like to jot that number down. And then we have social media too, so we'd love if you join us on our social media. Pete, who's on our call today, is really instrumental in making that come alive. So I am going to stop sharing my screen now, and I think, Mel, we can open this up for questions, right?
We're going to hear from Madison next
Oh, that's right.
her
That's right.
journey to UQ-Ochsner.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Madison. I'm a fourth year here at Ochsner. Basically, I was born here and raised in Louisiana. I went to college here at LSU. And when I was applying to medical school, I learned about this program and I just felt like it would be the perfect fit. This was actually the only school I applied to. I really wanted to challenge myself and step out of my comfort zone, not just by leaving my state, but leaving the country and still knowing I would return back and to train and serve my community. I was also interested in training somewhere that had access to universal health care and just to see how that changed both the patient outcomes and the way medicine was practiced. I think one of the most special things about this program is the community. When you move halfway across the world with a group of people who also don't know anybody, you become a family very quickly. I feel like that's different than traditional medical school environments that can be really competitive. I think this program really fosters collaboration and mutual support. Your classmates become your closest friends, your support system, and your community. And also, it's really fun. You get to live somewhere that's incredible, travel places that you might never have seen, and you still will feel very supported academically. There are intentional breaks during first year, and I think that really helps with the transition to medical school and makes such a difference when you're learning such a dense material. I also appreciate how intentional and clinically focused the program is from the very beginning. From week one, you're not just learning medicine theory, you are put into a small group and developing your and practicing your clinical skills weekly. And then second year, you get real clinical experience. You'll have both a hospital rotation and a GP rotation. And I think that early exposure really made the transition to the clinical years much smoother and helped me build a lot of confidence early on.
Madison. I'm gonna open up the questions. So the chat has been pretty busy. So this first question is for Dr. Amedee. Tom asked, Dr. Amedee, why choose this program over a U.S. med school?
Well, I think there's several reasons, and the majority of those were covered in the presentation. The biggest distinction for me is that our students have distinguished themselves tremendously after 4 years of study with us in terms of their success in the match. And let's face it, the ultimate goal of 4 years of medicine training anywhere, United States or abroad, is to be successful in the match process in the United States. Now, with that said, I need to let you know that your degree from the University of Queensland and Oxford Health also provides you with an opportunity to practice medicine in Australia. And probably 8 to 10% of every one of our graduating classes returns to Australia for love of country or love of someone else. And we're quite fine with that. We've even had some that have decided to go there after graduation and have returned back to the United States to begin their residency sometime later. And your training in this program allows you that type of flexibility that U.S. citizens in medical school just do not have. And I also think another key distinguishing characteristic that Madison has already touched on, the early clinical exposure. And I'm speaking strictly from being on the wards and in the clinic at Ochsner. We have a lot of rotating students that are, not just from the University of Queensland Ochsner program, but from other medical schools in our state and across the United States. And it's not uncommon to be making rounds where you have 4 or 5 medical students that are from different programs all throughout the world. And one of the things I have always been impressed with is that when we start asking clinical questions and explain what's going on in terms of this particular patient and your thoughts on this, the people that trained at the schools, nearest to us, they kind of get behind a post all of a sudden. And it's the students from our program that get out there and they start talking. They're confident. They've got the answers. They just didn't read it all out of a book, but they had experiential learning that has taken them to another level that distinguishes them on the ward. And I can only imagine how successful that positions them when it gets time to interview for the match.
Thank you so much for sharing, extra little innovations of our medical school and why, we do what we do. This next question is from Madison. And Melissa asks, what does a typical day look like studying in Brisbane versus New Orleans?
So it varies. First year, you're in the classroom a lot. You have traditional lecture, and then you also have a class where you're working on your clinical skills, and you also have a class where you are developing your procedural skills. And so you spend most of the time in the classroom and your afternoons studying, but I don't think that it's an excessive amount where you're studying till like midnight every night or anything like that. You still have time to enjoy yourself and enjoy the beauty of Australia. And then here in New Orleans is when it gets a little bit more intense. You have much longer days in the hospital, but I wouldn't take back anything. It's a really good experience. You can be as hands-on as you'd like to be. And then you finish your day fully working, and then you got to go home and study. But I think that's as expected. So
Thank you so much, Madison, going over what a typical day looks like for our students. I believe this next question from Sam is also for you, but Dr. Amedee, you might want to jump in. Sam asks, can I get involved in research and how do I go about it?
it's very easy to get involved in research. You will be set up with a mentor from pretty much when you start first year, a Ochsner faculty, and you can reach out to them for anything or guidance on anything or information or anything. Also, the Student Medical Association, OMSA, has a research chair that you can always reach out to regarding research opportunities. There's plenty to go around. This is an academic hospital. All of the doctors are pretty much doing research in some accord. So there's a lot of access to research opportunities.
I love that, Madison. That's great. I also think that not unlike many medical schools in the United States, the curriculum undergoes a refresh. And the curriculum at the University of Queensland has undergone a refresh in the medical program. And part of that refreshment involves the third year. And in the third year, there is a longitudinal research experience that takes place. And the class is broken down into about groups of 4 to 5 students that are all participating on one particular research project. Typically, they're choosing. I was looking at the list today of all our students that are coming in the third year class right now, and we have 18 preceptors that'll be researchers that will be overseeing these projects, and we'll have 4 to 5 students in each one of those particular groups. And we allow them to pick what areas they are most interested in perhaps pursuing. And it's, well, maybe I want to be a pediatrician. So I'd like to see if there's a research project in pediatrics or something that relates to adolescents. And I was told today by our team that greater than 90% of the students get their first or second choice. So that's very good also. Now, we just experienced the first year of that refresh curriculum in New Orleans. And I had the opportunity to hear all the presentations that were products of this longitudinal experience in late October of this year. And I was blown away. They were outstanding. They were incredible. And these were projects that involved all things and resources that Sue talked about earlier in terms of biostatistics, bioinformatics, things that are available for you as a student. We have those folks in our research entity that are there just for students and residents. There's another group that takes care of us when we're doing projects in our particular specialties, but there's a core of research people that are there to help our learners through the process. And the comprehensiveness of what was presented, and also the ends in all the studies, and the number of people that were analyzed or participatory in whatever the process was a distinct byproduct of the electronic medical record. We are one of the 10 largest medical institutions in the United States that uses Epic. I really should rephrase that. We're one of the top 10 Epic users in healthcare in the United States. And that when you start talking about doing a study of whatever, hypertension, and you want to see what's been going on the last 5 years, just at Ochsner, those numbers are not going to be in the hundreds. They're not going to be in the thousands. We had ends that were in the hundreds of thousands. And if we take the whole Ochsner system in, they will go up into the larger hundreds of thousands. And if we tap into all the other Epic sites that are throughout the United States, we'll be in the millions. So the capacity to have meaningful research in a very short period of time under direct direction from a supervising faculty was a great inclusion into the program. I was very impressed with the work. Many of these projects are going to lead to podium presentations at national meetings, poster presentations at national meetings. And this coming March, the journal that we publish at Ochsner, the Ochsner Journal, is actually going to be featuring 6 of those presentations. And we're very proud of that. And hopefully next year we can publish them all. So we wish all of our students great luck in that particular area. But that's a key thing to have on your CV. PubMed index number is incredible, ID number. And if you have that there as a meaningful publication, that puts you in a distinguishing field in terms of people that are interested in various specialties. And I think that this program, the uniqueness we've been talking about between the time in Brisbane and time in New Orleans, when you go to interview for residencies, you're going to be asked questions. Well, tell me about this experience. I think a lot of our program directors in the United States are very familiar with who we are now. But in the first 5 to 6 years, they had no idea what was going on. They know now. And many of the program directors that have been accepting our residents accept them year after year after year. Send us more of what we got from you last year and the year before and the year before. And the list of specialties that Sue shared in one of her slides, that's just a sampling of what we have. I mean, I can't think of a specialty in medicine that we have not matched a resident in, a student in throughout our history. So I'm an otolaryngologist by training. That tends to be one of the more competitive specialties. In the last 6 years, I can think of 4 that we have put into otolaryngology, and we have 2 very competitive students that are trying to pursue that in this year's match. So, okay, Melanie, back to you. I think I said enough.
Thank you, Dr. Amedee and Madison, about explaining how research is found and, some of the unique opportunities that the UQ-Ochsner program offers to support our students doing research while they are in medical school. And I know the next question is from Vincent. And I know Sue and Dr. Amedee kind of touched on this already, but I am going to ask. Vincent's asking, is there a disadvantage to being an IMG when matching? Who would like to take that,
No.
Dr. Amedee or Sue?
We do everything in our power to prepare our students to not be disadvantaged, but to be advantaged. You, as a graduate of this particular program, have a very most unique story to tell program directors about your journey through medicine, which nobody else will, not many other students will have. And you can talk about all the very clinical experiences, research experiences, additional degrees you may have gotten along the way. Our students are known for being fantastic at interviews because they have an incredible story to tell. I don't think you're disadvantaged in one iota. And also, all of our students getting ready to enter the match. So the fall of every year, those students that are going to be going into the match, they receive coaching, they receive mock interviews to better prepare them for the real thing and get feedback on that before they go out and have their actual interviews in setting. And I can tell you right now that the class that graduated in November for us, that's in the match for March, has garnered over 1,000 interviews. That bodes extremely well for our students to do extremely well in the match this year.
Okay, I have a few comments too. Thanks, Dr. Amedee. If you remember my match slide, when it said 58% for an IMG, if you think of the bell curve and 58% at the top, the average, well, that's because not all international medical schools are the same, right? So you have some that are less productive and credible as we are. And then if you think of the outliers, so you have some less than 58% that'll match. And then if you think of us in the high 97%, we're the outlier way on the other end. So if you say disadvantage, you're not disadvantaged if you're an outlier with 97%. But if you're on the other downside of that bell curve, maybe you are at a disadvantage. But that's certainly not us because of all the reasons that you've heard tonight.
Thank you both so much. And actually, Dr. Amedee touched on Stacy's question about support and assistance in applying for residency as well. So that was great. I do have a question for Madison next, and it's from Melissa. She's asking, how did you find coming back to the US to study after 2 years in Australia? Was it hard to adjust?
I think after 2 years, I was ready to come back, mostly because I was missing the food and my family. So I was pretty excited to come back, and I think the transition was good. I think I said earlier that you spend 2 years making a family pretty much with your classmates, and you have each other for support and to lean on. Also, the faculty supports you every step of the way. You're not lost and not knowing what to do. UQ sets you up for success in second year with your clinical rotations. You have hands-on experience talking to patients and coming up with management plans. So it's not a completely foreign concept when you get here.
So much, Madison. All right, back to Dr. Amedee. Tom's asking, Dr. Amedee, how much responsibility do students actually have when seeing patients?
Well, a lot of that depends on the mentor that they're working with, or the faculty that they're working with, because everybody has different ways that they introduce students into their care of patients. Ultimately, the staff physician is responsible for all the intake of information. But in general, what we're doing is we're relying on students to capture a lot of that history and to do a very basic preliminary examination and come out and tell us what's going on. And one of the things I think that distinguishes our students again is when they go through those types of exercises, they come out, they don't only give you the findings, they've already got a differential in mind. And usually what's going on is one of the things they've included in the differential. So I think as a third year medical student, that's outstanding. Doesn't happen in every case in medical school. But they're able to take that information, process it, and come up with a differential diagnosis, and then also venture into what potential treatment options might be available for each of those. And so in my particular practice, asset to my patient care. I love having them. Of course, I love teaching too. And the faculty that are involved at Ochsner with our students are all equally interested in being a part of training the next generation of physicians that will be taking care of each and every one of us as we get older.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amedee. This next question is for Sue. Jen is asking, what makes an applicant stand out when applying, especially since we have such minimal criteria?
Well, that is a good question, Jen, because you're right. We do have the minimal criteria. And as I said earlier, everyone comes to the interview with the meeting at least our minimal criteria or higher. So it's kind of a level playing field. And our interviewers just really, that's all they know about you. And yet they're grading you on your responses. So it's very objective in that it is 8 questions in a row testing you on your personality. So what's going to make you stand out is you. You're going to stand out in your application and your interview, and that's actually what we're looking for is someone who embraces and lives these qualities that the domains, personality domains that we're testing you on, like kindness and compassion, someone at verbal communication skills, someone who can approach a young couple in the that's in the hospital because their little child is critically ill, and you have to treat this family with compassion and use your verbal communication skills to explain to them in terms they can understand what's wrong with their child, their precious child. It's an urgent, terrible situation to be in. And the kind of person that could walk into that situation and handle that with that kind of level of compassion would be something that would stand out. And that's what you're being tested on. And I always like how I hear Dr. Amedee speak about what he's looking for, the passion for studying medicine. So, Dr. Amedee, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think we had a slide that touched on some of this, as a matter of fact, but I think key ingredients for a student that's going to be studying in our program, they need to be resilient. They need to be independent thinkers. Very important. There needs to be a certain interdependence on themselves to get things done. You are going from New Orleans, at least 11,000 miles on the other side of the globe to study medicine for 2 years in a new country. But what an experience. It's an incredible experience. As a matter of fact, I will be leaving with Sue next Wednesday for Australia as we welcome our first year class when they start on the 2nd or 3rd of February. We'll be there to put an Ochsner face on them and meet with them during the time that we are there. So I look forward to that each and every year. We've gone through the process of selecting them through the interview process we talked about, and now actually get an opportunity to meet them, meet a lot of families while I'm there, and allay a lot of their anxieties about their loved one living abroad. And usually, a lot of those families, I don't know about yours, Madison, but a lot of them make a trip over to Australia. It's an incredible country. It's beautiful. It is really incredible. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you so much, Sue and Dr. Amity. And you did. That was great. I have two questions that I'm going to kind of mush into one for Madison next. Melissa asks, Madison, how do you cope with long hours and emotional cases? And then Allison's asking, what's it like to see patients for the first time? And if you want to throw in a little bit of your experience with the clinical rotations and, the differences in health systems, that would be great.
Okay. So as far as coping, I think everybody has their own coping mechanisms that work for them. Personally, I really loved how this program kind of eased us into studying, and especially first year. And you kind of learn to build up an endurance for studying, and you're able to retain much more as you go. At first, it's all foreign and it can be a little bit overwhelming, but with more exposure, it kind of gets easier. And then when you come back here for your clinical years, it's exciting. If you show interest and you're prepared and you take initiative, you honestly you're trusted with responsibility under supervision, of course, and it makes it fun. As far as the emotional cases, that's something I'm still working on for me. I'm a very emotional person, but I appreciate that I have a lot of support, not only from my friends and family, which are great to lean on, but also from my academic advisor. I've talked to her about this specific topic before, and also the attendings. I actually had a really emotional case at the beginning of this year. And my attending, who is super busy and doesn't have time to probably have an hour-long lunch for themselves, took me to lunch and talked it out with me and really made me feel supported. So you really feel like everybody around you cares, and that's nice.
I would like to add one thing. Oh, go ahead, Madison. I don't want to cut you off.
Go ahead.
I would just like to tell all of our listeners that whatever got you to undergrad and ultimately into medical school, do not give that up. I went as an undergrad into a music program. I thought I wanted to be a conductor or composer or something, and got very interested in sciences after my sophomore year and ended up in medical school 2 years later. I can't tell you how many hours of practice and rehearsals and things I'd been through. And as soon as I started medical school, I took my instruments and I put them in the case and I never opened them up again. So my word of advice to all of y'all, if you got this far dancing, keep dancing. If you got here singing, keep singing. If you got here working out or athletic prowess of some kind, keep doing all of that. And I think this program allows you to continue to do those things well into your training with us at Ochsner and beyond in your residency and fellowships and eventually practice.
So much for having me.
I just want to go back and talk a little bit about the healthcare system and just seeing patients. So obviously Australia is a universal healthcare system, and you really get to see, just living there, how invested the government and community are with the preventative care. And my training really showed me that the beauty and impact of the preventative medicine. And with the universal access, patients often present very earlier in their disease course, versus here in the US, especially in underserved communities, we often see patients that are presenting much later and much sicker, not because they don't care, but because access to healthcare is such a barrier here. I think seeing both really helps you have some perspective and reduce your bias in practice. And as far as rotations, I think it is nerve-wracking to see a patient for the first time, but one of the most valuable experiences was my GP practice in second year. You're there firsthand. It's you and one GP, and you build a really good relationship and you become comfortable with each other. They don't just spring you in the room and say, go talk to somebody. You've practiced already talking to your classmates and practicing your exams on your classmates, and also for the OSCEs with your actor patients. So you have a little bit of experience before you're thrown in to see patients. And then, of course, your GP or your preceptor on your rotation will really just guide you, and they won't make you do anything that you're not yet comfortable with. You can sort of build up to whatever level of involvement that you want to do. It's really no pressure. They're there to just guide you through the process. And the GPs actually, they're actually so different than ours. The GPs are the first point of contact for all age groups and diseases. Here, kids would go see the pediatrician. You would go get a skin check from the dermatologist or a pap smear at the OB, but GPs there are trained to manage all of this. So in your rotation, you get to see such a wide variety of things, undifferentiated patients, also managing chronic diseases, and it helps you develop your clinical reasoning skills, often really earlier and more broadly than you might have the experience to here in the U.S. Medical school. And in New Orleans, it's just the best. It felt like the best of both worlds. Like we've said, Ochsner's leading healthcare system here in Louisiana, and they have such an incredible range of academic physicians and specialists, and they all care about teaching. They love teaching, and you just have so much autonomy as a student. You get hands-on experience. It's mostly just you or maybe one other student, and you have really meaningful involvement with patient care. You get to form bonds with the residents and the attendings. And if you show interest, you can do as much as you really want to. So it's great.
Both for answering that question with such detailed information. All right, Madison, we got one more question for you. Dan's asking you if you know what specialty you want to go into and how have you decided that's what you want to do?
This question is haunting me, Dan. I am not quite sure yet. I am between peds, OBGYN, and PM&R. They're very varied. I think that it starts with just knowing what you don't want to do, and you kind of go from there. I've always loved the population of children. I do well with children, and I thought I would always do pediatrics. And then I did my OBGYN rotation, and I was delivering babies, and I was like, this is amazing too, bringing life into the world. But every specialty has its pros and cons, and lifestyle is kind of important to me as well. So I've been thinking a lot about PM&R. I like to be hands-on, whereas OBGYN is a much more intense and demanding lifestyle. So that's kind of the balance that I'm doing now. You just kind of find out what you like in theory. And I think that that's the process goes down to how much do you want to be present and what demand do you want to be on call? Do you want to just be in the clinic all day? So I'm still working with that decision for myself, but hopefully you'll see soon.
Before we started this webinar, we were actually talking about this very topic with Madison, and I made a comment that I think is still pertinent. A great medical school is going to cause a student to change their mind about what they want to do 4 or 5 times. If you enter medical school and say, I want to be a family practitioner, and you have the blinders on for everything else, and your experience is pretty limited in terms of patients and experiences, you probably are going to be a family medicine doc. But one thing to come and say, I want to be a family medicine doctor, and after you complete anatomy, head and neck anatomy, or after you complete neuroanatomy, you decide you want to be a neurologist or a neurosurgeon. And then you finally, in your 3rd year, rotate onto surgical rotations. And you say, oh my God, maybe I've been missing this all along. Maybe I want to be a surgeon, or maybe I want to be an orthopedist or urologist or an ENT doctor even. I think a good curriculum challenges students many times to come up with a decision. So Madison, thinking carefully over 3 choices right now is not unusual, and I think it's a good place to be. And it's a sign of the very rounded experiences she has enjoyed.
Thank you, Dr. Amedee. I was actually going to just ask, kind of as a follow-up to a question that was asked in the chat earlier, what would we as UQ-Ochsner do to support Madison while she makes such a decision that, is going to impact her future and how she's going to practice.
Well, we've already touched on the society heads, and that's usually the first point of contact. And Madison happens to have a society head who is one of the most gifted pediatricians and academic educators that I have ever worked with. So I have a feeling that the pediatric stuff might win out in the end, but she's an incredible advisor, and she can advise Madison in whatever she wants to do. It's not the society head's decision, it's the student's decision, and to facilitate your passage into successfully matching into that particular residency. In addition to that, we have a whole leadership team within the clinical school in New Orleans that advises again and makes contacts for you along the way. If you're going to do an external rotation someplace, one of us is bound to have a contact there that we can introduce you to, or give them a call and say, look for our student, be there next week. Give them a great experience so they can understand what this specialty is all about. That type of thing. So we have a lot of contacts. We work with our students on an individual process. So they come to us. We have a lot of information to offer them and take advantage of, and we highly encourage them to bother us as much as possible to facilitate their transition from medical school to residency. I think that's the key or the special sauce of our high match rate.
Yeah, I was just telling them that I reached out to my advisor about this decision, and she knows me very well at this point, but she replied in 2 minutes, and she already had CC'd two PM&R doctors to meet, and we set up times for me to meet with them personally and discuss sort of this decision and their outlook on it. So you're very well supported, and you're not alone. Somebody will help you and guide you.
So here. All right, so it is 6:59 and we are out of chat questions just in time. So I wanted to thank you all for joining me on this webinar, and thank you all in attendance and for having such amazing questions. Thank you, panelists, for such engaging answers from our chat. And next month, be on the lookout for our virtual open house.